So, confidence. We all hear about it. We all talk about it. We all feel it's important within the workplace. But what does it actually mean? And I think the first thing I always want to look at is what are the benefits of confidence within the workplace? And for me, there are a number of benefits. I'm not going to read all of these out, but the ones that I continually sort of refer back to are, if you're confident, and I'm going to talk a little bit about being confident and potentially, upsetting some people and saying you might have to act confident, but it's about reducing those negative thoughts. Confidence isn't just about bombing into the office and exploding with the stories of your weekend or bashing out fantastic presentations or delivering sessions. Confidence is about how you feel about yourself and almost putting aside those negative thoughts. I hear so many people saying, oh, I never knew I could do that, or I didn't think I could do that, or I was worried about it. And yeah, those are really, really good feelings, but you should also be going and saying, I can do this, I will do this, and if you need help, ask for help. But benefits to the workplace are across the board. A workplace full of confident people is probably happier. We definitely find that at FI. When people are confident within their work activity, everyone's a little bit happier. If everyone knows what's going on, what the plan is, everyone's just a little bit happier. And something we're going to talk a lot about later on is that motivation. So it really, really helps having confidence in yourself and others and what you're doing to really be motivated. As always, any thoughts, views, opinions, please use the chat box. Happy to go through any of those in greater detail if you want. Please use the chat box to let me know. So there are a number of benefits to individuals, to the business, about people being confident. But I think there's three key things for me when we're looking at it. The first is assertiveness, and I'm very careful when I say assertiveness because there's being overconfident, arrogant, rude, all of that stuff, and depending on which day of the week it is, I come across it probably all three within about 10 minutes in some cases. But it's about confidence, about being assertive, being able to say something like, I'm not sure that's going to work, or when you're delivering a session, take the lead, take lead in meetings, and that's where confidence really, really does come into its own. If people are confident, you get effective communication within the workplace. Anyone within my team, and I hope this is the case, Lottie as always disagreed, but we know it's the case, anyone knows they can just pick up the phone to me and ask a question. Doesn't matter how stupid it is, and sometimes there are stupid questions. I'm going to let's get rid of that myth straight away. There are stupid questions on occasion, but it is actually asking it, having the confidence to ask it and being able to ask it in a confident way. And that for me is really, really important. If you have confidence within the workplace, whether that's people, what you're doing and all of those activities, then your communication just goes through the roof. Inquiries come in and you're confident dealing with that, and you go through that in a really clear, confident manner. That client, that customer, that colleague is so much more confident as well. And confidence breeds confidence across the board. And the other one that I personally am a real believer in is that confidence boosts activity or productivity or whatever term you want to use. Having confident people who are able to go and make decisions with the support behind them really, really is a driver. If I'm on holiday, I trust the guys to make the right decisions. There is no worry there. So I've got confidence in them, and they've got confidence that if they do make a mistake, which is human nature, we do make mistakes, again, something that we have to accept and be confident about overcoming those mistakes. But if they do make a mistake, they've got the confidence they're supported by myself, Lottie, and the rest of the team. So it's about ensuring that confidence seeps through everything that you do. That's all easy to say. That's the nice overlying stuff of me saying, yeah, just go to work, be really confident, and that's it, job done. But actually, how do you develop that confidence? Loads of ideas on there. As always, I'm not going to go through these individually, but if you want me to, please shout out. There's a couple I'm going to talk about. The first and most important for me is having a routine. I love a routine. I like a rule, but I also like breaking a rule, so it's a bit weird. As long as it's my rule, it's fine. If it's other people's rules, I do like to break them on occasion. But having a routine builds confidence. If you know what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be working, and the way in which you want to work, that routine can really, really set that confidence level. So if you have that opportunity in whatever you're doing, I always suggest create a routine. Yes, you might have to flick it up if your manager asks you for something at a moment's notice, but that routine will still give you that confidence to be able to go, okay, I'm taking a call. To my right, I've got my notepad, I've got my calendar up. That routine of setting your working practices is really, really important. And the final one I want to talk about, and please use the chat if you want me to go through any more detail, is choose your tribe carefully. And I'm a massive believer of this. Within workplaces, there are groups, there are cliques, there are friendships, there are social work friendships, outside work friendships, all of that stuff. Something I have learned to do is make sure if I'm going to be talking to people, I'm talking to the right people. You know, who are the right people to talk to? If you get into a negative cycle, you know, every Monday morning you talk to the same person who's had the same dramas every single weekend, whatever it might be, that doesn't start your week in a positive way. You know, always be looking to pick those individuals you talk to who maybe are positive or supportive. And that's something that is really hard to do. I appreciate that. But if you know that individual's really negative, just go work out a different strategy to deal with that. There's so many there. If you want me to shout about any, please let me know.
I think Laura would like a bit of advice on how does confidence work when you're remote working?
I think it's a great question. Thank you, Laura. For remote working, confidence is only in the way you articulate yourself on meetings, the way you articulate yourself in emails, and that will breed your self-confidence. It depends what you're doing. You know, remote working is an interesting model, and I talked about that. Was it yesterday we did remote working as a whole session? So watch the recording back. You'll probably get some hints and tips from that if you weren't on that one. But with remote working, the confidence comes from everything you set and do. So again, it almost comes back to that. Have a routine. When do you get up? When do you go to work? And treat your little commute. And I make this joke at home. I'm commuting to work now while I'm walking across a landing. Actually set that routine. And then in your emails, use positive language. On calls like this, always start the calls with something good. I always use the easy one at the moment, the weather. You know, oh, it's sunny, it's fantastic. You're automatically brightening that day. And you can do that with working remotely in the exact same way you would face to face. And one of the big things I would say on the working remotely is use the camera, turn them on, let people see you. Yes, if you've got stuff all over in the background, you can use one of the weird Zooms or Teams background things. But actually, the more you share, the more you come across, the better. Fabulous. So confidence is a key one. And confidence is bred by other people being confident in work, confident in activity. But then I think you need another element to being that motivator, that enthusiastic within the workplace. And enthusiasm is something that we talk about. You know, we all say we're really enthusiastic, but who is actually enthusiastic in the morning when it comes to, I've got a meeting, it's the same meeting every single week, how do you get enthusiastic? So again, I just want to talk about the importance of being enthusiastic. Being enthusiastic as an individual, I think for me, just gives you that motivation every day to get up and do it. You know, being enthusiastic about what you do or what you want to achieve, or even if the role itself isn't potentially making you enthusiastic, potentially the reward is. You know, if you're buying a house, for instance, you know, your job might not be the most exciting thing, but the reward is buying a house, having that excitement. You know, it's going out for that meal at the end of the day, or buying yourself that new top, or whatever it might be. So enthusiasm is really important because it gives you that motivator, whether it's because you enjoy your job, or whether it's because you're motivated by the end results of getting paid, or if it's study. You know, let's be honest, I wasn't very enthusiastic about studying at any point in my life. but it's the end result of getting that certificate, cracking on, getting that job, whatever it might be. So it's about building your own enthusiasm. And I think for me, it's then goes into how does that enthusiasm improve the workplace? And it's something that we talk a lot about within our team, about making sure people are enthusiastic about little things, and it comes across all the way. And again, I'm not going to talk about these in great detail, except for the last one, which is always my go-to, is feed and water people. If you're in the office and people look a bit low, go buy a cake, go buy someone coffee, go buy chocolates, biscuits and all of that stuff. Even though I've moaned about this for ages about the amount of snacks we have in our office, it does actually motivate people. That moment of, oh, fab, there's a nice biscuit, there's a nice cake. And that feed and water, and it's so simple, but actually someone running out and paying £1 for a biscuit tin makes a huge difference. Lottie, I know you've got strong views on this one.
I do. I totally agree. I think it does give you a little booster, or like we were saying yesterday about working from home, even for yourself, it gives you a bit of a boost if you think, oh, in a few hours I'll treat myself to whatever it is. We've got a couple of bits coming in the chat box as well. As someone saying, control your self-talk as well.
Yeah, was that from the previous slide?
Yeah, from the previous slide. Yeah, so controlling your self-talk, I think we wanted to go back on. And Anna has said, strongly agree with knowing your why and establish an emotional connection to it.
Yeah, totally agree, Anna. In terms of the self-talk, you know, that controlling it is really important, because if you say you can't do something, you're not going to be able to do it. You know, if you say I don't want to do it, or I struggle doing with it, you're always going to have that negative connotation to it. So you've got to have that self-talk again. I can do this. I will do this. I will ask for help, but I will still get it done. And it's turning those negative thoughts, which for some of us, particularly me, I'm usually negative in my first thought about certain things. But I know I need to flick it round and go, no, I can do this, or in most cases, I will do this today. You know, I am the world's worst at sometimes for procrastinating. If something's boring, I won't do it. And sometimes I just have to turn to myself and just say, I'm going to do it, just get it done, move on, and then get some reward for it. And again, it's about making sure you do that across the board with everything you do. Turn every negative thought that you have into a positive, and your world just changes very quickly. Fabulous. So, techniques for actually becoming more enthusiastic. Now, I'm going to upset people again, and sometimes we're not enthusiastic, okay? I cannot say that every time I go to a board meeting or a senior management meeting or whatever it is, that deep down I'm enthusiastic, but I try and appear enthusiastic. I try and do that, and actually by the time you start, you are enthusiastic, and I actually do love those things. So for me, it's that core element of sometimes you have to act, you have to pretend, you have to appear to others to be enthusiastic, and that upsets a lot of people. You know, actually saying that I'm not enthusiastic about going into meeting about automated reporting, that's probably honest, but not the greatest way for that person delivering it. So appear, act, pretend. Again, I'm not going to go through all of those. If you want me to, shout, but I've got a couple more on the next slide. And yeah, I've chucked it on there again. Act, so important for me. That's where it all starts. And then the only other one I would say which is really important for enthusiasm is actually being able to say no. You know, sometimes actually saying, look, I would love to be able to work on that project, but I actually physically don't have time. It's showing you're enthusiastic about something. You are appearing enthusiastic about it. But you're also saying, actually, I can't do it. And that's really important on occasion sometimes. Again, if there's any on there you want me to look at, any you want me to go over in more detail, please shout.
I think another thing which I sometimes do to improve confidence and stuff is almost going outside of your comfort zone slightly. So if there's something which comes up that actually is something which maybe you haven't done before, or is perhaps more challenging, like just saying yes to some of these opportunities sometimes makes you feel more confident afterwards, and you realise actually you have that skill set or the ability that you probably didn't realise before. So I think kind of seeking those opportunities is fantastic to help improve confidence too. And in the chat box we've got sometimes ignoring or disagreeing with a negative self-talk can be useful as well. Just good thoughts.
Yeah, it depends what motivates you.
Yeah,
it really does. I am motivated by people saying I can't do something. Lottie knows this, because then I just go, well, I can and I will, and that is a motivator. And there are certain individuals within our business who know if they say no to me, I'll just go and do it, and I'll prove why we can do it. And not only will it be amazing, it will be a revolutionary thing for the business, but they know that's how that gets me going and how I become enthusiastic by certain things. And so yeah, fantastic little point there. So we've talked about confidence. We've talked about ways that we need to improve our confidence, why it's important to the workplace, why it's important to us. Enthusiasm is very much a self-driver. You can become enthusiastic by having enthusiastic people around you, but that inner voice is so, so important. And that approach you take to improve your enthusiasm or build your enthusiasm, again, quite a lot of these are self-driven. But if you have enthusiastic people around you, you are more likely to be enthusiastic. But why not be that person? Why not be the super enthusiastic person in the office who's saying, fantastic, we've got this wonderfully boring report to do, let's smash it, let's get it done, and let's go for a beer. Whatever it might be, show that enthusiasm. But when we talk about enthusiasm, I think we then need to talk about motivation. I am someone who, hopefully, again, Lottie, disagree if you like, but hopefully we are very motivated as a team. It's about motivating to do things together and work really, really hard and do things as an individual as well as a team. So motivation for me is massively important, and there are barriers to motivations. Let's not get that wrong. Time can be a motivator. If you can look at your to-do list right now and you've got 100 things on there, and you're about to go on holiday in about 15 minutes time, you're probably not going to be as motivated as you may be in other circumstances. So look at that time, work out good time management techniques, refer back to our session earlier in the week potentially. That would, again, really, really help. One thing that I struggle with is individuals who potentially, not poor, maybe poor is a bit harsh, but lack maybe some communication skills. Maybe that's personal, interrelationship skills, whatever it might be. And sometimes that's a real demotivator when you're going into a meeting with someone and you're going to have to explain things, or potentially you're going to have to justify things when there's potentially no need to justify. It becomes very, very difficult sometimes. And I know for me, that's potentially a demotivator. There's certain things in life where I'm just like, no, I cannot be bothered. And again, that's not the right way to view it, but that's how I then need to use the techniques about enthusiasm, get myself motivated, and then that confidence grows again into that area. The only other one I would say about barriers to motivation on there is the fault finding in others. It's very, very easy to look at an email and go, well, that bit of punctuation is wrong, they didn't really do that correctly. And sometimes we can get caught in that loop of elements in life. And I think for me, finding fault in others and others finding fault in you just becomes a negative barrier. And actually, yes, you may have made a punctuation issue, and yes, that is a serious thing that you need to sort out, all of that stuff. But actually, is the tone of the email there? Is the information provided correct? You may have made a mistake presenting something, but actually, was the outcome exactly as expected anyway? And for me, we've got to stop fault finding with ourselves and others, because it really is a demotivator. If every time I log on, I check every email I send 500-600 times, I'm just not going to get any work done. So it's actually having that confidence to really push on. And again, it comes back to that confidence within what you're doing as an individual and that team of people around you, essentially. Anyone there that anyone would like me to expand on a bit more? Any thoughts, views, ideas? Please use the chat box as always.
We've got a few things going on. Laura's saying she went for a job last year and they said you're so enthusiastic and it almost put them off. So it made you think that they weren't a good organisation to work for.
Brilliant little ending there. I thought,
Yeah.
that's, you know, when we interview, I am all about the enthusiasm and the individual. We've screened people. We've screened people whether you can do your job or not. Now it's about you as an individual. Do you fit into an ethos? And I completely agree. If I turn up to an interview and they were, I'm going to say, boring, bit dull, couldn't really be bothered with it, then there's no way I would be working for that organisation. And it's that same way that you've just said there, you know, it's definitely not an organisation potentially you want to work with if they're not as enthusiastic, bubbly, and all of that stuff that you might want.
Yeah, definitely. And then Anna said, making yourself do things you want to do in your daily life builds your skills too, which I totally agree with. And then I think Ramesh would like a bit more of an explanation on learning to say no. I think that was from the previous slide perhaps, but yeah, a bit more on that.
Yeah, I mean, learning to say no is really, really important. And it's across everything, not just confidence, enthusiasm, motivation, but actually, if you say yes to do everything, and I do this, I put in our little group chat, has anyone got time to work on a little project for you? If you're sat there going, no, I don't, but I don't want to appear that I can't do something or I won't do something, and you say yes, you're then just going to run out of time to do things. You're not going to be able to do your other stuff properly, or potentially you're not going to know enough to do that task. So learning to say no is really important, but it's that way you do it. It's to say, I don't have time for that, or I'm not sure how to do that, or actually I haven't been trained on doing that yet. Please show me and I'll do it. And that's where the importance of saying no, because as soon as you say yes to everything, you're just going to end up getting bombarded with stuff, first of all. You're then going to be less enthusiastic about it, and your confidence will probably wane slightly because you're not going to be doing everything to the level you expect of yourself or that others expect. So learning to say no is one of those really, 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 really important things, but you've got to do it in a positive. No, I can't do that because I don't have enough time because of X, Y, Z. And one of the things I struggle with is people who say they don't have enough time and stop the sentence there. I don't have enough time because X, Y, Z is great. That's a lovely idea, a lovely way of discussing it. But just saying, no, I don't have time isn't always the most effective way. You've got to add that reasoning on the end.
Yeah, I think we've got a few more thoughts coming through as well. About kind of jobs. So someone's excited about the job. Someone said to their new employers, and they said they actually got the job because of their enthusiasm and excitement about it. And then someone else is saying that they were working within a setting where everyone was so sensitive, and they're actually quite a straight talking person. So actually it's kind of a bit of a conflict of personalities. And I definitely kind of agree, you know, working in an environment, you want to be around people who are quite similar to you, in your similar kind of enthusiasm level. But also sometimes it works where people aren't as enthusiastic, because you can kind of almost bring them up, and you kind of different personalities do help. But I can see how that could be quite challenging, definitely.
I personally love a bit of conflict, but positive conflict. So I do like it when there's different personalities, different views, different perspectives. But if you're in a very small team and you've all got very different views, opinions, and styles, then yeah, it can be really, really impossible sometimes. And I'm the world's worst. I'm quite blunt, as Lottie knows and probably shares with everyone on skills days I'm not on. But I am very blunt on occasions and sarcastic. But that works because everyone knows that. I've built that rapport and relationship. So I would say if you are working in a team where there's lots of different kind of relationships and personalities, actually be open and discuss those things. You know, if I say something sarky, I'm not being rude. It's just my apparent comedian value or whatever it is. But whatever it is that open transparency is really, really important. And talking to people about things is always key. And again, you just got to be careful without the gossiping element to it.
Yeah, we've got people saying trying to please people. Someone's working in an environment where the manager is very negative. It can be quite hard when you work with people who are quite draining, isn't it? Especially if you're trying to be enthusiastic and you're around those other individuals. But I think it's just about navigating your way around the day, and trying to find use some of these techniques from today's session to try and help you stay motivated, even if perhaps other people aren't, which I know is quite hard. Laura's saying traditionally working in accounting is seen as boring, but the role of accounting is changing. Definitely, totally agree. We work with a bunch of accountants and they're definitely not all boring. And
you said that on a recording as well.
I know. And David said everyone needs to appreciate some level of sarcasm. Definitely. I mean, there's some days where Ollie and I will just talk sarcastically to each other all day. Shivali is saying there's a zone in challenging circumstances where creativity begins and ideas flourish. Lovely.
Absolutely agree. You know, I love a disaster or an issue, you know.
You actually quite like it if I disagree with you.
Yeah, I love it if you disagree. I love it if I come to work and someone's sick and we do the immediate, oh, this is exciting, right, let's sort it out. And I love that bit, you know, it's that project management element to me. I love that sorting, fixing and cracking on with it. What I don't like is that sitting in meetings and endlessly reviewing documentation or whatever it is. And that's the sort of thing that gets me motivated in reality. Yes, having someone off sick, not great, but actually it's quite good fun in some ways. It actually means you've got something to do and you've got that real outcome quickly. So I really, really enjoy it, and I totally agree. It flourishes creativity. The amount of times we've gone, oh, we've got a problem here, well, let's do X, Y, Z, and then that's our new process moving forward. That's something that I really, really enjoy. Use the chat box. What motivates you? I've got some of my thoughts, my techniques, but thinking about what motivates you, please chuck it in the chat box, because we're all different. We all have different views, opinions, backgrounds, social ideas.
We've got an early entry by Laura here with money. Totally agree.
Yeah.
It's a big motivator.
I would always say, though, you know, Lottie and I talk about this regularly in joking conversations, of course, but money is a massive motivator. I totally agree. Going and buying the nice stuff, and I'm obviously very lucky and I have a study and all of that lovely stuff that comes with that. But being happy trumps money as far as I'm concerned. But that's what I'm going to say on money, because it's a very emotive subject.
Yeah, we've got good team. Oh, they're all coming in. Hang on. Good team. Targets to reach, stability, and having respect.
Nice.
Incentives, having goals. If they pay you enough, you know they respect what you do. Nahida's come with a question, so I'll come back up to that one in a second. I've got success and the freedom to do your work in different environments. Yeah, that's what the kind of world we find ourselves living in at the moment, isn't it? Praise, always nice to hear something nice about yourself, isn't it? Achievements. I would always say I'm not comfortable discussing things regardless of seniority. And we've got this question. Should we come back up to the other question before we move on? So Hyde's coming saying, how should you react when someone is saying bad things about a person who is brilliant and is not present? I did feel like saying something, but did not, because I'm a junior.
That's a very, very difficult one. Now, being the blunt individual I am, I would just say how I think and how I view the situation, but that's not always the correct way to do it. Sometimes you have to report, you know, you have to go to your supervisor, your reporter, and you just have to say, look, this individual's having a natter about this. It didn't come across very positively. That is enough on some occasions. You know, that happens within our team regularly, and I have those little conversations with individuals. And there is that human nature. Workplaces are a gossip ground. It's when gossip turns nasty and it starts to affect people's work. You know, as soon as it's, I don't want to work together because they're always doing this or they're always doing that, slightly different perspective on the whole thing. For me, I've personally been in that situation a few times, and I've just said, look, I don't want to hear it. In reality, you know, if you think that, that's great, but I don't want to hear it. And I don't think that's that rude. It's quite rude, but it's not that rude in that situation if someone's having a natter. Or you might just have to go to reporting lines. You know, my team know they can come to me and say, look, so-and-so said this, they don't seem very happy, and I'll go and I'll sort it. And it won't be a negative sort, it will just be a light conversation. but you know your workplaces, you know your situations you're working, and you know the right way to approach these things. But for me, if you ever come away from work having a regret, and that sounds what it might potentially be by putting in the chat box, then I wouldn't make the same thing again. I would then go and actually raise it next time, personally.
Yeah.
So I'm quite blunt, so it doesn't really help.
Shivali's response was actually for Nahid. It wasn't an answer to what motivates you. So sorry, I completely misread that. So
Cool.
has actually put a bit of advice in there for Nahid, which was, I'd always say I'm not comfortable discussing things regardless of seniority, which is good advice.
Fabulous. So my techniques for motivating myself, I would say, is I love a motivational quote. And they're everywhere in my little notebook, on my phone, on my laptop, whatever it is. I love a motivational quote because it just gives you that grounding. But again, that doesn't work for everyone. I have a number of playlists. So I have pre-meeting playlists, pre-presentation playlists, I have running playlists, I have whatever it is. And that for me is a huge motivator. If I'm in the car on the way to a meeting, and Gareth, one of our owners, talks about this a lot as well in his stuff, if I listen to a certain playlist, a certain song, then I am motivated, just naturally am. But sometimes that's not always a great way to approach it. Sometimes you need to be calm and cool rather than potentially pumped up, or whatever term you want to use. So using correct playlists for me is really, really important. I love a deadline. I cannot stress this enough to people. If you say, can you do this? And you just leave it open, I'm just not interested. But if you say, can you do it within the next hour? I'm like, yes, of course I can. Doesn't matter what it is, heart surgery, doesn't matter. I'll get it done. Jobs are good. But that for me is a huge motivator across the board for me. That having a deadline and going, yes, I will smash that. It's going to be amazing and it's going to get done. That really does get me motivated. And then I love a little bit of self-competition because the greatest challenge is against yourself in some cases. And I love a little bit of, well, I did that all right last time, I'm going to do it better this time. You know, I love certain competitions with myself. With others, I'm a bit rude on competition, so it's quite difficult on occasion, but I do love that self-competition. I'm insanely competitive and it comes out negatively in team sports and family board games and stuff like that. But in terms of self-competition, you can be as rude to yourself as you like. And that for me is a huge motivator. But more importantly for you guys, these are some of our tips. And again, please don't try and use them all because you probably just end up all your time trying to motivate yourself. But please take things away from this that you might do, you might use, you might process later on. I'm going to talk about a couple, but please use the chat box to shout out if you want me to talk about anything. The first one that I really like, and I know it's a bit simple in some cases, but act like your heroes. You know, if you're lucky enough to have like a mum or dad who are such a role model and you're lucky enough to have that, then act like your heroes. You know, that idea of maybe not be Superman in the office because that could get a little bit weird, but if you think about yourself as Superman, that idea behind it of act like your heroes, you know, portray their positive elements to it there, whether they're great at multitasking, whether they're confident, whatever it is. And as I said earlier, sometimes you have to pretend or you have to appear to be enthusiastic. The absolutely same with self-motivation. Sometimes if you just act motivated or act like someone else, it will just naturally come. And I really, really like that idea. And the other one comes back to all of this stuff is keep it positive. As soon as you say, I can't do that, or I won't do that, or I don't want to do that, that's it. You might as well have just called it a day right there. So you've always got to be positive. You've got to be saying, I can't wait for this session on skills days. I can't wait for this opportunity to go write that report. I can't wait for that meeting where we're going to be told about how much we've got to do over the next month. As long as you have that positivity in you, that's going to come across everything that you do. Shout if you want me to cover any of those a bit more detail. Lottie, anything coming through in the chat?
Yes, so Shivali's come in and said, I think it was about what you were saying before about deadlines, saying it might be because you're maybe an extrovert type, but introverts tend not to be motivated by tight deadlines. So yeah, you know, if that's not your motivation, find something else which is that thing that's going to get you going. And has come actually in with a question with, how do you remove mind blocks where you absolutely do not believe that you can achieve a certain thing, i.e. your exams or your qualification?
Can I just come back to the previous point about extrovert versus introvert? How do you know if I'm an extrovert or an introvert? How do you know that element to it? Am I acting as whatever you may see me as today, or am I really someone who prefers to be in my own room, not have any other social contact whatsoever, and definitely do nothing social? Something to consider there is about the way we come across and the way we can manage our communication and our appearance and our persona. So I totally agree. You know, you might not be motivated internally by deadlines if you are an introvert, but then there are other things that will motivate you potentially. So, but also remember that comment I made earlier about acting or appearing, because you see me now on a tiny little screen, hopefully not actually looking at me, because it's not a great look, let's be honest. But if you are looking at me, you see me in this tiny little moment, and that's what other people can see you as constantly. You know, especially working remotely, I log on with Lottie, she could be moaning about me to high heaven for hours and hours and hours. Then she logs in and says, "Hi Ollie, how are you?" You know, we only see people at that moment. So that appearing and acting breeds positivity. So it's making sure you do that all the way through, because you'll maybe think I'm amazing. Don't, because that's completely incorrect. But if you do, but you're seeing me for about 2 minutes, in a minute I'm going to go to the toilet, fall over, smack my head on the floor, or something else will happen. So it's remembering all of those things that you're only seeing a snapshot, but I'm appearing motivated, appearing enthusiastic, and appearing confident. But that then breeds it over time. Sorry, Lottie, what was the second question?
The question was, is how do you remove mind blocks where you absolutely do not believe that you can achieve a certain thing, i.e. exams or your qualification?
Easiest thing is to make a list, write down what do you need to do to get there, because I see this regularly with people saying, I'm never going to be able to finish this apprenticeship. I've got 6 exams there, I've got 30 development tasks outstanding, whatever it is. Let's break it down. And I am a master at this, you know, self-confidence there, throwing again, but I am a master at just saying, well, actually, what do you need to do? What's the deadline for each of these things? Where are you with your exams? Okay, you haven't failed an exam yet. Why not? What did you do? What techniques can you take forward now? What can we do? How do we break it down? And take that overarching goal of get your degree, get your AAT qualification, get qualified, whatever it might be, break it down into simple, tiny, manageable steps. Again, Gareth does a lovely session on this where he talks about the Olympic gold medalist, and I can't remember what it is, but they needed to take like 10 seconds off their personal best swimming time. And they had 4 years, and they broke it down into like 0.001 second every day. And it's achievable if you break things down into small, manageable chunks. I think it's the overwhelming blocker sometimes is that huge thing. So if it's an exam and you're looking at 10 chapters, break it down, break each chapter into 10 pieces, then break that down further, and just tick off, tick off, tick off, tick off. And by breaking anything down, you should be able to do it. But if you're trying to build a house in London and you haven't got any land and you haven't got any money, you need to go all the way back down to how you're going to get the land, how you're going to get the money and all of that stuff. But you might have to stretch it all the way back to a start point, which goes beyond where you think you are. You might have to go backwards to come forwards on occasion as well and stuff like that. Fabulous. Any more on that one?
We've got a book recommendation here, I think, called Atomic Habits, which is similar to what you're saying. So thank you for that, Laura.
Fabulous.
We'll have a little look.
How do we motivate others then? And again, I'm not going to talk about all of these. I think there's some core ones that come through though. The first and most important is be transparent. You know, yes, I've talked about acting a little bit or pretending or appearing, whatever terminology you want to use. But for me, I get on best and work best with people who are open and honest and transparent. If you say to me, Lottie, I don't want to do this, but then we have a chat about it, we sort it, we do it. But the moment someone says, oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing that, and they're not, And I know that it's about breaking that barrier down. Be honest, be transparent, and be clear. There's loads and loads of different things in there. And the final one I want to talk about is celebrate happiness. I don't think we do this enough at all. You know, I make a really big deal about this within our team, but if someone gets married, gets engaged, has a kid, whatever it is, you know, it's about celebrating that, chatting about it. And for me, celebrating happiness, not only big stuff, but little stuff, whether it's got to work on time because the traffic was awful, whatever it might be, those little wins, those little goals really seep through into everything we do. You know, the moment we turn up into the office and go, blooming hell, the traffic was awful, I've spent 45 minutes in there, that sets your day wrong. Flick it round and say, yo, I might have been in traffic for 45 minutes, but I've got to finish a podcast, I got to have loads of phone calls on the phone, and I've actually done loads of stuff while sitting in traffic. Obviously, please use hands-free and all that stuff. But it's really, really important that you turn that negative into a real positive. Lottie, anything you wanted to say on that one?
The one I particularly like on this is sharing positive feedback. I think it's really easy to pick up on things which perhaps may have not gone right or well or anything like that. But actually, it's similar to what you just said, or you're actually talking about the positives in it as well. So, you know, I have meetings with people in my team and stuff, and yeah, picking up on stuff of what we could improve and what we could do better next time, but actually praising for something which someone's actually done well. I think we're quicker to provide negative feedback sometimes than we are positive. So I think, you know, just mentioning that to somebody else in your team would be lovely, and kind of it breeds a bit of motivation. It gives someone a bit of a boost, which is nice.
Completely agree.
And Ramesh has said inspiring people as well in the chat box.
Yeah, inspiring people is what I think everyone should be about, whether it's, you know, you're inspiring yourself, whether you're inspiring other people, whatever it is, you know, that's what we should be. And it comes back to that comment earlier about, you know, role models and heroes and all of that stuff. You don't want to be the person who turns up into the office and everyone goes, oh God, they're here now. What are we going to hear about? What negativity is it? And we all know these people, and be honest potentially and say, look, you come into the office and the first thing you do is moan about how cold it is, how hot it is, where there's not enough coffee, there's not enough cakes, that the traffic was bad, that the train was like, whatever it might be. That for me, I just groan at stuff like that, and I do actually groan, which isn't helpful, but it at least makes it open and honest, and I will support that individual. Go, well, yeah, you might have been stuck on the train, but did you get an extra coffee out of it? Did you get to like touch someone's shoulder in a weird way? Whatever it might be, it's what positivity is there that comes out of it, and that's what we should always be flipping to. For me, the absolute main thing from this is you've got to find your own motivators, your own drives, your own ambitions, whatever makes you passionate, I suppose. If you've got a passion for something, whether it's just yourself, getting something done, deadlines, whatever it is, that's always a way that creates that motivation. And for me, it's about ensuring that you take those elements from today and try and work little things into your own day. You know, it could just be as little as giving yourself a little reward for doing a great day's work. It could be just saying something nice to someone else. You know, how often do you actually just pick up the phone to someone and say, look, you did a great job on that, well done. Doesn't matter what level you're at, everyone likes praise. And I think for me, it's about making sure we take some of those techniques and try and incorporate them into our kind of everyday activity. And that is everything I wanted to chat about today. Thank you so much for joining, as always. Sorry I've got a couple of minutes over.